The human soldier chose the forgotten alien princess. The galaxy couldn't believe why. The alarm on my wrist went off at the exact moment someone tried to slide a sonic blade between my ribs. I caught the wrist behind it, twisted, and put the attacker face down on the polished floor of Vethnar Station's east corridor, before they could blink. 3 seconds. The blade clattered. The attacker turned out to be a Drevak security operative in civilian clothes, and the look on his face when he realized a human soldier had just folded him like a napkin was something I would have enjoyed more if I hadn't been late for my assignment. I cuffed him to the wall bracket with a zip tie, took his blade as evidence, and kept walking. My name is Cale Doran, Sergeant, 7th Human Coalition Infantry, currently on protective detail for the human delegation at the Galactic Summit of Vethnar. 12 of us were permitted inside the station. The other 11 were posted at doors and elevators. I had the ballroom beat, which sounded easier than it was. Vethnar Station was the galaxy's unofficial trading table, neutral ground, a megastructure the size of a small moon, orbiting a dying red star at the edge of claimed space, where empires came to make the kinds of agreements they did not want written into formal records. The summit happened every 4 galactic years. Every major power sent delegates, heirs, envoys, and in several cases, members of their royal bloodlines, to be quietly traded through marriage alliances and cultural union ceremonies. It looked like diplomacy. It was closer to an auction. I had been watching it for 2 days, and I was already tired of it. The ballroom was a 3-story open space, with a transparent ceiling showing the red star outside, casting everything in shades of amber and deep orange. 300 delegates from 14 species moved through it in clusters, reading each other, negotiating, performing. The music was a 12-tone alien composition that made my back teeth ache. I did my sweep. I noted the exits, the clusters, the body language. Then, I noticed the corner. She was standing near the far wall, close to a decorative column that served no structural purpose, in the way people stand near things when they want to look like they meant to be there. Her skin was a silver gray that caught the red starlight and turned it into something cooler, more quiet. Her markings, the bioluminescent lines that ran from her collarbones up her neck and along her temples, were barely glowing. They had the look of something that had been dimmed on purpose or had simply run low. No one was near her. In a room of 300 people, engaged in frantic social performance, there was a clear radius of empty space around her that no one was crossing. I had seen that before. Not in alien ballrooms, in military hospitals, in discharge waiting rooms, in the faces of soldiers who came back from something and found that everyone around them had quietly decided not to know what to say. I was off rotation for 20 minutes. My replacement, a corporal named Owen, was already at my post. I had exactly no orders about what to do with my break. I picked up 2 glasses of whatever the station was serving, walked across the ballroom, and stopped in front of her. She looked at me the way people look at something that should not be there. Not unfriendly, just genuinely confused. I held out one of the glasses. She stared at it. Her translator implant made a small struggling sound, and then caught up. "What is this?" she said. It came out flat, like a question that had forgotten its punctuation. "Honestly, I have no idea," I said. "The color is concerning, but I've had worse." She took the glass. She did not drink from it. She just held it, and I got the feeling that the gesture itself had meant something to her, separate from whatever was in the glass. "You are human," she said. "Sergeant Cale Doran, 7th Coalition Infantry, currently the only person in this room who isn't trying to buy or sell something." "That is not accurate," she said. "I also am not." "Then we're the 2 most unproductive people at this summit." Good. I was getting lonely. Something moved in her expression. Not quite a smile, a loosening maybe. The faintest brightening in the lowest of her bioluminescent lines, the one that ran just below her jaw. "I am Sarah L. Voss Kethmari," she said. "Of the Kethvari." I filed the name carefully. Kethvari. I had read the brief. 3rd day on station, Colonel Vasquez had handed every soldier a political summary of every delegation present. The Kethvari entry had been 3 lines. Former empire, dissolved 31 years ago through economic isolation and resource starvation. Bloodline not extinct but considered politically irrelevant. No territory, no fleet, no leverage. The brief had said she was here because removing her from the invitation list would have required acknowledging she existed, which no one wanted to do. Last of your line? I asked. Yes, she said. No performance in it. No tragedy either. Just a word that had been said so many times it had worn smooth. That's a heavy thing to carry into a room like this. Every room is like this, she said. This one simply has better lighting. I laughed. I did not mean to. It came out before I could decide whether it was appropriate, and when I looked at her, she was watching me with an expression I could not fully read, but it had gone several degrees warmer. We talked for the rest of my break, and then through Owen's rotation, because Owen waved me off when he saw I was occupied. We talked about Vethanar Station's frankly baffling architecture. We talked about the 12-tone music, and whether it was meant to calm people or simply to punish them. She told me that the Kethvari had a musical tradition built on silence, on the spaces between sounds, and that she found most galactic music unbearably crowded. I told her humans had a form of music built almost entirely on repetition, and she said that sounded exhausting. It is, I said. We love it. Her markings were gold by then, not the dim silver they had been when I walked over. Bright, warm gold, running up her neck and along her temples like something had been switched back on. She noticed me noticing, and the gold dimmed slightly, self-conscious. They respond to emotion, she said. I cannot always control it. Don't, I said. She looked at me. Control it, I mean. It's the most honest thing in this room. The summit's third and final day brought the alliance bonding declarations. Formal, ceremonial. Every heir and envoy who had been quietly negotiated for was publicly confirmed. It happened in the full ballroom, with the galactic broadcast drones circling overhead, transmitting to about 11 billion viewers across the connected systems. I was back on rotation, standing post at the north entrance, watching the proceedings with the particular kind of attention that looks like inattention but catches everything. The Galactic Council moderator worked through the list: betrothals, cultural union ceremonies, economic partnership seals. The room applauded at the right moments with the specific enthusiasm of people applauding things they had already agreed to in private. Then the moderator reached the section of the list that covered unattached delegates, those who had come without an alliance assignment. There were 4. He read 3 names. For each one, he noted their status and moved on. He reached Sarah L's name. He paused. Not long. Just enough to glance down at his notes with an expression that said he was deciding something. Then he moved the data screen forward, skipping her entry, and went on to the closing remarks. It was smooth. It was practiced. It was the kind of erasure that doesn't leave marks because it doesn't even acknowledge the thing it's erasing. I watched it happen from across the room. I looked at her. She was standing near the same column as the first night, in the same radius of empty space. Her markings were dark, not dim. Dark. Something in me went very quiet and very certain. I crossed the ballroom floor. 300 people. Broadcast drones, 14 species, 11 billion viewers. I stopped in front of the moderator's platform, and I raised my hand in the formal request gesture that every soldier learns in galactic protocol training. The moderator looked at me with the expression of a man who has encountered a scheduling error. Sergeant, he said, polite, warning. There's an entry that was skipped, I said. The room shifted. You could feel it, a change in the quality of attention, like pressure dropping before weather. The proceedings are on schedule, the moderator said. I'm invoking the Human Mutual Recognition Clause, I said. Article 14 of the Galactic Charter, ratified 33 years ago. A human citizen may extend formal diplomatic recognition to any stateless person, granting them protected status under human coalition law. Silence. Not the polite silence of ceremony, the hard silence of something unexpected, landing in a place where the unexpected is not welcome. Sergeant Doran, that was Colonel Vasquez, her voice coming through my earpiece, quiet and extremely controlled. What are you doing? Also, I said, because I was already here, and there was no version of this that ended quietly, I'm invoking the Companion Accord. Provision 7, same charter. A coalition soldier may formally request cultural partnership with a recognized individual. I turned from the moderator. I faced the room. I found her. Sarah L. was looking at me. Her expression was something I had never seen on any face, human or alien, like someone watching a building fall in a direction gravity should not allow. Sarah L. Vos Kethmari, I said, and my voice went out through the room's speakers, because the broadcast system was still live, and no one had thought to cut it. I'm asking if you'll accept alliance with humanity, and with me. The room detonated. Not violently, diplomatically, which is sometimes worse. 14 delegations talking at once. The Drevik contingent made a sound that their species uses for laughter, but which always sounds to human ears like something mechanical failing. 3 delegates were on communication devices immediately. The broadcast drones swung toward me with the focus of things that can smell significance. Vasquez was saying something in my ear that I was choosing not to fully process. Sarah L. had not moved. She stood in her empty radius of space, and she looked at me across the ballroom and she said, clearly enough that the nearest broadcast drone caught it. Why? One word, but the room went quiet for it. I breathed out. Because the galaxy looked at you and saw nothing worth keeping, I said. And I looked at you and saw someone who survived the end of everything she knew, and still showed up, still talked, still stood in this room full of people who would rather pretend she doesn't exist, and she stood there like she had every right to be here, because she does. I kept my eyes on hers. Humans have a specific problem with watching something real get discarded, because it's inconvenient. We've gone to war over it before. Call it a character flaw. I'm told we're working on it. The room was so quiet I could hear the red star outside making no sound at all, because stars don't, but the silence felt like it should have been that loud. Also, I said, quieter now, just for her, though the drone caught it anyway. You're the most remarkable person I've met in 4 years of traveling the galaxy, and nobody was doing anything about that. So, Sarah all walked. Every eye in the room followed her. The drones repositioned. 300 delegates watched a silver-gray woman cross a ballroom floor in a room that had spent 3 days pretending she was furniture, and they watched her walk like she owned the distance between where she had been and where she was going. She stopped in front of me. She looked up. Her markings were blazing, every line of them lit in gold so bright it threw small shadows on the planes of her face. She said, very softly, "Your species is absolutely insane." "Yes," I agreed. "Are you in?" She took my hand. The room did not know what to do with itself. That was fine. That was actually the best outcome I could have hoped for. The next 72 hours were the most diplomatically eventful period in human coalition history since we told the Veth Consortium that their exclusive trade lane agreement was not, in fact, legally binding in systems humanity had charted first, and we had the charts. The Drevik Empire filed a formal protest. 3 other delegations lodged competing objections. The Galactic Council opened an emergency session to debate whether the Companion Accord applied to a stateless royal of a dissolved empire. Vasquez called me in at hour 4 and looked at me across a table for a long moment without saying anything. "Ma'am," I said, "I can explain." "I know you can," she said. "What I want to know is whether you understood what you were doing." I knew she was being skipped. I mean the rest of it, the legal implications. That came later, I admitted. Vasquez slid a datapad across the table. On it was a legal brief that our team had assembled in the 18 hours since the ceremony. Human coalition attorneys were very fast when they smelled something interesting. I read it. The Kethvari territorial rights had never been formally dissolved. They had been ignored, which is a different thing. And within those rights were registered claims on 3 wormhole corridors that had been mapped by Kethvari explorers 2 centuries ago, and quietly, incrementally taken over by the same empires that had economically strangled her people out of existence. Those corridors were currently generating significant traffic revenue for 4 separate powers. Under Sarael's now recognized status as a coalition-protected individual, those claims were active. Active claims with coalition backing meant dispute proceedings. Dispute proceedings meant the 4 powers had to either negotiate, prove the claims invalid, or return revenue. Our legal team had already filed the initial paperwork. The Drevik alone are looking at 40 years of back payments, Vasquez said. I didn't know about any of this when I invoked the accord, I said. I know. She looked at me. That's the only reason I'm not furious with you. Is that the only reason? A pause. The longest pause of my career. No, she said. Then, dismissed, Sergeant. 3 weeks later, I was aboard a coalition transport with Sarael, heading toward the first Kethvari refugee settlement, a scattered collection of transports and repurposed orbital platforms, about 60,000 light minutes from anywhere that mattered. She was going to be the first member of her royal line to visit in 30 years. I was going as her coalition escort, which was technically a new duty assignment that had never existed before 2 weeks ago. We were in the observation bay. The stars outside were doing what stars do, which is nothing visible to the naked eye, but if you watch long enough, you start to feel the movement in it anyway. Her shoulder was near mine. Her markings were the steady, warm gold they went when she was quiet and at ease, which I had come to understand was a color she didn't show easily. She said, "Did you know about the wormhole corridors?" No. If you had known, would it have changed anything? I thought about the corner of the ballroom, the dark markings, the moderator moving his screen forward without pausing. 3 days of watching a room full of powerful people practice the particular cruelty of pretending someone isn't there. No, I said. None of that was part of the calculation. What was part of it? You told me your people tried to survive by being quiet, by not causing trouble. I looked at the stars. I've served with soldiers who tried to survive like that. It works for a while, then it doesn't, and by then they've forgotten how to take up space. She was quiet. You hadn't forgotten, I said. Even after everything, you were still there, still talking to the one person who walked over to you, still being exactly who you are, in a room that wanted you to be nothing. I paused. That's not a small thing. That's one of the harder things a person can do. The stars moved, the way they only seem to when you stop looking for it. The settlement, she said after a while. My people. They've been scattered for 31 years. They've built lives in the gaps between other people's territories. They didn't wait for me. No, I said. They don't need saving. No, I agreed. So what do we do? I thought about it. I had been thinking about it since we boarded. We show up, I said. That's the whole job. You show them someone from their line still exists and chose to come. We show them the legal filings, the territorial claims, the fact that 4 empires are now legally obligated to have uncomfortable conversations. We don't fix 31 years in one visit. Humans are impatient, she said. I expected a larger plan. We're impatient about the wrong things, I said. We're pretty patient about the things that matter. Her markings pulsed once, bright, then settled back to the warm, steady gold. She didn't say anything after that for a long time. Neither did I. The transport moved through the space between places, and outside the transparent wall the stars did their long, silent work. At some point her hand was in mine. Neither of us had made a decision about it. It had simply arrived. 11 billion people had watched a human soldier invoke an obscure charter provision and ask a forgotten princess a question in front of the galaxy. For about 60 hours it had been the most transmitted piece of media in 6 connected systems. Analysts had opinions. Commentators had segments. The Drevik released a formal statement calling it an affront to diplomatic order. 3 other empires agreed. 2 quietly did not. In the human coalition, a survey conducted 4 days after the summit found that 81% of respondents, when asked what they thought about the incident, said some version of the same thing. Yeah, that sounds right. That's about as much as Sarah ever said about it too. Much later, when someone asked her what she had thought in the moment I walked across that ballroom floor. She said she had thought I was confused, that I had the wrong person. That in a room full of people worth approaching, no one with any sense would cross all that distance to stand in front of her. And then she said she had seen my face and understood that I was not confused at all, that I had done the math and come up with a different answer than everyone else in the room. Not because the math was wrong, because I was using different numbers, the ones that don't show up on political briefs or alliance registries or 3-line summaries in a soldier's pre-summit reading packet. The ones that are harder to count and matter more, and are the only ones I have ever known how to use. The transport reached the settlement 14 hours later. We were not expected. We showed up anyway. That is, as it turns out, most of what matters.